Greetings, everyone, and happy Halloween! Yes, thus begins the official Halloween day/night reviews. I give you 13 hours of Halloween, spread across the next 24, because I'm not that insane. So 13 hours of Halloween began a couple hours ago with the final episode of my full game playthrough of The Wolf Among Us. Wonderful, wonderful game from Telltale Games. And, well, it wouldn't be Halloween without a whole ton of movie reviews, so what better thing to review on Halloween than Halloween? And as luck would have it, we've got 10 of them. So let's start with where it all began. If I can get the case out, the 1978 original Halloween, today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Now playing. Welcome back. Now, of course, Halloween came out in 1978, which means I would have been 6 years old. So a little too young to enjoy it when it was new. It wasn't until about probably 10 or 11 years later that I actually bought the VHS tapes of Halloween 1, 2, and 3 and finally got to experience them. But I think it was another one, much like Prom Night, where I had actually seen the opening scene on television at some point. Of course, on television it was censored. You don't see Judith Meyer's boobies. But it was still quite horrifying to a young, impressionable youth like myself. So I think much like Prom Night, it was like, yep, I'm scared shitless, change the channel. And then it would be another 10 years before I would actually see the movie. And I remember after seeing the movie on VHS, I later caught a little bit of a TV showing of it, and it had the extra scenes that were added in to the TV version. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember that. Like, I by this point watched it several times, and I was like, I don't remember that. Where was that from? How can I get my hands on those scenes? And there was a Laserdisc edition that came out a couple of years later that had those scenes incorporated into, I think it was just in the deleted scenes, actually. It wasn't like in the main cut. But it was like a 20th anniversary edition, I think. And sadly, I missed out on that one. So, anyway, we'll come back to the TV cut in a little bit. So the movie itself, boy, it's easy to see why this one is such a classic. This is John Carpenter in his prime, man. I mean, not only is it good and properly scary and creepy and atmospheric, but the composition of the shots and the pacing and the use of music to emphasize the dramatic impact of different scenes, it's just so perfectly put together. I mean, just as a film, it's really good. Now, obviously, there's aspects of it that are a little bit dated by today's standards, some of the fashion and whatnot, but who cares, whatever. I mean, you expect that going into a movie from 1978. But, boy, is it ever good. And I just never get tired of revisiting it. So the basic story is pretty straightforward. When he was 6 years old, young Michael Myers decided on Halloween night one year to kill his sister. Why? Who knows? Apparently he's just batshit crazy. And yeah, so we learn about the case of Michael Myers through his doctor, a psychologist by the name of Dr. Samuel Loomis, played by the always wonderful Donald Pleasance. And I swear, he gets all the best lines in the whole thing, too. But just any time he talks about Michael Myers being pure evil incarnate, I mean, it's just poetry, man. I mean, in ways that only Donald Pleasance could ever possibly deliver it. Just he's that vacant, haunting stare of a man who's really seen some shit, and always a joy to watch. But so essentially, the long and the short of it is, he's been Michael's therapist for 15 plus years, and he says that he spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then the remaining 7 trying to make sure that he never got out. Well, when he was 21, Michael Myers managed to escape, because actually in the TV cut, you see some of the crap that Loomis went through trying to keep Michael contained. Nobody believed him that he was dangerous and such, because the whole time he was incarcerated, Michael was just kind of catatonic and unresponsive. But he wasn't catatonic and unresponsive. It was an act, basically just biding his time, waiting and waiting for the right moment to escape and wreak his vengeance upon, the rest of his family, essentially. So he escapes, and he heads back to Haddonfield, which is his home, and he heads back to his old house, which is, now basically abandoned and up for sale. And Laurie Strode, played by the always wonderful Jamie Lee Curtis, so she has to drop off a key at the old Myers house because it's being sold. So she drops off the key, and there's this wonderful point of view shot of Michael looking through the window. And you just hear, he never says a word, you just hear his breathing, and it's very, very chilling and unnerving. And then from that point on, throughout a good chunk of the movie, you see Michael, often off in the distance, like across the street, or just off behind some trees, you kind of half see him, and he's wearing this plain, ghostly white Halloween mask. Now, interesting story about the mask, for those who don't know. The actual mask that they used for the movie was a Don Post mask, which was actually of William Shatner. So it's a Captain Kirk mask that they repainted white with dark brown hair. The original mask was kind of an off-pink color with blonde hair. So yeah, nice little bit of trivia for you. That's probably pretty common knowledge by now, but I thought I'd mention it for the 2 or 3 of you who may not have known that. But so it's William Shatner going around brutally killing everybody. So anyway, he basically stalks Laurie throughout the movie, and in the meantime, we get to know her and her friends and her family. One of her friends is the sheriff's daughter, so we get to know the sheriff a little bit. In the meantime, it cuts back and forth between that and Loomis, who's trying to find him. He's trying to find Michael and bring him back and put him away once and for all, or kill him if he has to, because he knows that now that he's out on the loose, the killing is going to start again. I mean, who knows how many people he's going to kill. So he needs to find him and stop him before it's too late. Now, the interesting aspect to this is, at first you think, like, okay, well, maybe Laurie's just... he's just kind of targeting Laurie because she dropped off the key, therefore he's peripherally related to his family. But no, apparently not. She's actually his other sister. So after the murder back when he was a kid, she was put up for adoption and has been living with a foster family all this time. And under a different name. So she's actually a Myers. She's actually Laurie Myers. But she's been going by the name of Strode, and thus, they thought that she'd be protected. But Michael's not that stupid. So, yeah. Anyway, long and the short of it is, circumstances happen, things occur, and she ends up babysitting 2 of the neighbors' kids, while some of her friends are over at the sheriff's daughter's place, and they're having fun and everything. And, and then... basically, come Halloween night, that's when the killings begin, because that's his night where he, kind of plans to do his things. That's when he killed his sister 15 years prior, so that's kind of become his death night, where he kills whoever he's after. So in this case, he wants to get Laurie, and will kill basically anybody who gets in his way. Now, in terms of the kills themselves, gorehounds out there, they're pretty tame by today's standards. It's really more about the tension and the suspense in this one, and that's one of the things I like about this one, is it's not an over-the-top, in-your-face body count driven slasher movie like so many of the imitators which followed. It's much smarter than that. It's almost Hitchcockian in its building of suspense. I mean, you know that it's heading towards a big confrontation of some kind between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. That it's going to be this sweet innocent girl versus this unstoppable killing machine. And how's she going to survive, You know it's heading that way. But the journey to get there is a long, slow, leisurely paced journey of building suspense, building tension as he's stalking her and you see him in the distance and hiding behind things, or she catches glimpses of him. There's times where you don't even see him clearly. You see the shape of him. Very intentional use of words there. In the background, just kind of out of focus. And this is the beauty of Carpenter, is he's focusing on the antagonist. So it's like as they are unaware, it's almost like we, the viewers, are unaware, yet we can see what's behind them. And there's, we can see, oh shit, he's over there. Like, look. And then, cuts away, cuts back, and he's gone. So it's like blink and you miss it. But there's a lot of little moments like that where if you're looking down at your popcorn or something, you might miss it and you don't see it. So I like that. I like that subtlety and that, almost having Michael as an Easter egg to be found as you're watching. It's like, keep an eye out, see if you spot Michael, So it just kind of adds to the fun as a viewer of watching this. It gives you a lot of little things to find on your own. It doesn't spoon feed it all to you, which I think is great. So when it gets to that final confrontation between Laurie and Michael, it's incredibly tense. And even then, you got to understand, this is very early in the slasher genre. I mean, many credit this as being the first true slasher movie. I mean, yeah, I know we had Psycho and some other ones years before, but this is really the first one that turned it into a genre because it was just such a huge hit. And since Halloween, and especially Friday the 13th, which really kicked it off as like a super subgenre of horror. Prior to that, there wasn't a lot of movies in that genre. Like, it didn't really exist as a subgenre per se. You get the occasional one here and there, but that was it. It wasn't until Halloween or Friday the 13th that it really kicked off, and we got a whole string of them. So you have to understand that at this point in time, that subgenre didn't really exist. So what we've come to establish as the tropes of those genres, which were parodied beautifully and brilliantly in the Scream movies, they didn't exist at this point. So a lot of what we're seeing... but already, we're kind of playing with those a little bit. Like, for example, she does the obligatory hiding in the closet. And she hides in the closet, and it is completely ineffective. Like, he immediately knows that she's in the closet. But the thing I love about Laurie Strode as a character is, yes, she's scared shitless, but at the same time, she maintains her resourcefulness. So she's stuck in the closet. He's bashing his way through. She's like, fuck, what do I do? Like, what? I need something to defend myself. She grabs a coat hanger, quickly unwraps it, and then jams it up into his eye. Just something, anything to defend herself, and it's very clever. And then that he drops the knife, so then she's able to use the knife. She's got the knife now, so then she can just stab at him, and then get him to back off. So she thinks she kills him, and she goes off, and she's kind of recovering. She sends the kids away, so now it's just her and him in the house. And again, a beautiful out-of-focus shot where we see her just kind of like breaking down, thinks that, I can relax now, I can finally have my cry. And in the background, out of focus, you see him laying down, and then he sits up. And there's no music, there's no sound, there's just the sound of her crying and, losing her marbles. And he just sits up and gets up and starts to walk towards her. And it is such a wonderfully tense moment that, normally would be spoiled by music. It's like, dun, 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 but John Carpenter doesn't do that. He understands the art of subtlety. And this whole film, I think, is an exercise in suspense through subtlety. And it's incredibly effective. It's just fantastically done. Masterfully done. There's a reason why he's considered a master of horror, because he fucking is. He knows what he's doing. And this film is a perfect example of that. I mean, I do see some people slag it off as being too slow-paced, but no, it's not slow-paced. It's deliberately paced. it is intentionally taking its time, because it gets you into that sense of that comfort zone, that sense of ease, where it's like, oh, this is just fairly light and blah blah blah, and they're off, partying, and they're having sex now, and the whole sex results in death thing that started here. You got the always wonderful PJ Souls, who I just saw in Carrie. Yes, PJ Souls is totally in this movie. Totally. I didn't know that totally was such a big 70s expression, but according to PJ Souls' character, it sure as hell is. She has sex with her boyfriend, and then they both get killed. And it's a wonderful scene, and shows how Michael Myers likes to play with his victims a little bit. Like, he's not without a dark sense of humor, where he kills the boyfriend by pinning him to the wall with the butcher knife, which completely goes against the laws of physics, by the way, but who cares? It's a good moment. And I love how he jams the knife into him, pins him to the wall, and then just kind of stands there looking at him. He always has that. He does that a lot throughout the movies, and I find that interesting. It's like how he kills the person, then he just kind of stands there and watches. You almost wonder, is he getting some kind of pleasure out of that, or does he just? It almost seems to me it's not so much pleasure, like he's getting off on it, but he just finds it interesting watching the life ebb from somebody. It's fascinating to him in some way. But and then when he goes up to the girlfriend, he's dressed in a sheet with the boyfriend's glasses on, and he's just kind of standing there, and he just fucks with her for a little while before actually killing her, and it's great. So there's a dark humor / fun side to it, yet it's also very sinister and chilling, because you as the viewer know exactly what's going on, but seeing how it all plays out, it's very very effective. It's just fantastic. So, long and the short of it, needless to say, I love the original Halloween. I watched it over and over again when I had it on VHS. I don't think I ever actually owned it on Laserdisc or DVD, actually. This set here is the first time I had owned Halloween again since owning it on VHS back in the day. But hey, if you're only going to get one set, you can hardly do worse than this one. Boy, I tell you, it's awesome. So the Blu-ray actually has 2 discs in it, one of which is, I think it's the Universal transfer, and then the other is the Anchor Bay transfer. Both of these discs are actually re-releases and transfers that we've seen before. So you won't really see any difference there if you've got those 2 prior releases. It's basically just literally the same discs. It doesn't even have the Scream Factory logo on them. But yeah, there's a couple of the releases in here are like that, but we'll talk about those when we get to them. So yeah, long and the short of it, Halloween is awesome. I should mention also on the bonus disc, where is it here? Yeah, the bonus disc, which is on the Halloween 2 remake disc. This is the disc that is exclusive to this particular set. You won't find it in the smaller version of the set. You can only find it in the collector's set. But this bonus disc here contains a pile of bonus features about the making of the other movies, as well as the complete television cut of Halloween. Now, the television cut of Halloween is interesting because the version we have here is kind of a hybrid cut. It's not strictly the television cut with the censorship trims and whatnot. It has all the content of the theatrical version fully 100% intact. The only difference is it inserts the new scenes that were created for the TV version into the movie where they would normally be. So essentially you have an ultimate cut where it has everything from the theatrical version complete and uncut, plus it's got the extra scenes that were created specifically for the TV version. So basically you've got about 10 minutes of extra scenes in that cut, and yeah, it's the most complete version of Halloween you could ever hope to get, because it keeps all the nudity and the kills uncensored. So yes, you get Judith Meyer's boobies in the opening scene. It doesn't have the censored version that was actually on television. And then it has the additional scenes. The additional scenes are interesting because we get a lot more of Loomis, and in particular you get a lot more of Loomis in the Institute trying to keep Michael incarcerated. And one of the big scenes that's been added is he's at a hearing where it's being decided whether or not to move Michael to a maximum security prison, and his request is denied. And needless to say, he's not too happy about that. And then that's where they were talking about how they think that he's just catatonic and unresponsive and therefore not a danger. And Loomis is trying to tell him, it's like, no, he's fooling you. He's like, well, how do you know? He's like, I just know. And of course they don't buy that, so they deny his request. So then there's a wonderful moment where he goes in to the room where Michael is being kept, and Michael's just sitting there in the chair, is kind of, twitching a little bit, but basically just staring blankly out the window. And he just says to Michael, he says, you've got them all fooled, haven't you? But you haven't fooled me. It's just a nice little moment where we get to see Michael kind of in that interim period where he's been in there for a few years and such, and just it's a different introduction for Loomis, because in the theatrical version we see him as he's driving up to the Institute and then discovers that all the inmates have been released and Michael's escaped, and he kills the nurse, and Michael kills the nurse and everything. But so in this one, we see Loomis earlier, and it kind of get a little bit more backstory of what he tried to do to try to keep Michael in there. And then we also have some scenes of him investigating Michael's room after the escape and sort of checking out what's going on there. And then you also see a little bit more just sort of character stuff with Laurie and her friends, with Annie and what's her face, the other one, the one played by PJ Souls, who's, I can't remember the character's name for some reason, but yeah, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So if you want that, you got to get this. Good luck, it's out of print now, but yeah, this is just one of those rare times where I basically jumped on a big collector's set as soon as it came out, simply because I heard that it was limited and it wasn't going to be around for a long time, so I didn't want to miss out on it. And I'm really glad I did, too, because, I mean, this is a fantastic set. It's easily the most definitive collection we've ever had of the Halloween movies. And a lot of the later ones in particular, getting the remastered treatment, which they have desperately needed for a very long time. So, good stuff. So Halloween, all right, 1 down, 9 to go. It's going to be a long night. 13 hours of Halloween continues in 2 hours, or we'll talk about Halloween 2. Until then, quick thank you to my Patreon sponsors, especially Kyle Pellegrini, my highest level sponsor. Really appreciate the support, dude. And big thanks to all of you for watching. Alrighty, that is it from me to you for now. So until next time, sayonara.